Let me invite Professor Grzegorz Nawrot from the Silesian University of Technology in Gliwice. And the title of his paper, his presentation is Home, Dwelling, Building, City, Architectonics.
Dzień dobry Państwu. Dziękuję wielce.
Good morning, everyone. I'm very grateful to the esteemed organizers for their invitation, for including me in this session. At one of the latest conferences devoted to defining architectural space, when we spoke about myths in architecture, I spoke about durability of an architectural object. A city is a certain architectural object, and I will refer to that in my today's paper. So I'll be speaking about permanence or durability of an architectural object. So perhaps let me start with a question to which an answer can be obvious or seems obvious. A city does not exist without its inhabitants. For whom is the city? The inhabitants are its content, and for them it is built. Therefore, its fundamental character is defined by the interaction between the inhabitants and the nature of the work. The way of life is related to the place of dwelling. This is also the consequence of the location and nature of the work. Hence, the conclusion is that by changing the nature of the inhabitants' relationship, we change the city. So it is particularly important nowadays when we have that major impact of digital and IT technologies on communication. And that communication emanates through the structure of space. So a city can be considered on many levels or from different angles, but it still remains a system. And then we have live organisms. So cities as live organisms, they live, get ill, and die. Cities die in many ways or in multiple occasions, and the consequence of a death of the content is the death of the matter, replacement of the matter or the content by new content or matter is a certain form of durability. So the death of a city in its current definition occurs in other areas too. So it results from a certain transgression. The initial compact city, after going through that stage of matter dispersion, becomes a hybrid city, and that is the result of the operation of the ITC and digital technologies. Space is expands by adding certain areas that have not been used so far. And the relationships shaped by this technology, material elements, tangible elements, which are the emanation of transformed activities of the residents come here. So that was always the case. Certain objects would disappear, certain professions would disappear. All objects were subject to transgression. But nowadays we have the whole system which is transformed and rebuilt. So as a result of the application of digital ICT technologies. So the image of a city changes, technologies are determined by our way of life. So similarly to spots and places described before, there is this dispersed virtual non-city. It covers larger and larger areas of immaterial cities, and technologies determine the lifestyle. So therefore, a seemingly simple and easy answer to that question that I asked at the beginning of this lecture is not that obvious anymore. So it's about potential interpretation of perception. So that formats different areas of our life. Then when we have different definitions, we use different criteria for assessment, important and non-important features. Features could be, cities could be named, but it's more important to define them.
To słowa przywoływanego wczoraj
Yesterday,
Calvina.
Italo Calvino was quoted several times, and let me say that the adoption of an ambiguous idea which determines actions results, therefore, in the designation of the key criteria expressing it and omission of marginalization of others, was possible to try the name cities, but it's more difficult to define them. So we have Montalcino, Siena, and then Assis, made of stone, the city of Warsaw. Then American cities like San Francisco and Atlanta, Georgia, Mumbai, in India, and then Las Vegas and Dallas.
San Jose i małe
San Jose and small Greek Skopelos on a Greek island, Chancay and Sao Paulo,
miast będzie interpretowane.
made of concrete. Each city will be interpreted separately. They can be interpreted from a viewpoint of an urban planner, architect, sociologist, psychologist, historian, cultural scientist, archaeologist, geographer, physician, and biologist. So the interpretation would vary. What is important is the description of a city and its name that comes with the description. So the name is the coating or the framing.
Jako dużym domu jest kształtowanie wektorowe dla otwierania się przestrzeni.
So this vectoral structure for opening the space anticipated for a house is one of the points here. So Mons and Romer's theory can be referred here. So a house open within this space of a house and relating to Albertis to the larger space of the city. So we have that internal and non-internal dwelling. So expansion of the intimate interior of a dwelling is understood as a constellation and a set of mutual relations. So we have a place to sleep. And the third place and reference to exterior. So it prompts us to build dispersed houses. Functions of a compact house are transferred to the space of a large city. If we interpret a home as or a house as this home concept, when we move that home concept outside that intimate zone, no longer ensures intimacy. According to Plato, everything that we see and perceive with our senses is an imperfect imagination of the world of the ideas. But then in the world of the ideas, everything is permanent and never changes. So it's like a sensory world, which is dependent on its prototype. So formatting, so this is the permanent system. It depends on the prototype, the world of ideas, the material of which it is made, and the action of the builders. And architectural matter, in turns, is a kind of reflected image of an area, a formatted interpretation, an illusion on a Platonic screen of a cave. Formatting this structure of a space is constructing a system. Architectonics, it involves constructing everything on several levels of design. So it's above the architecture and the architectonics. And then we have a structure built on multi-layers by using various immaterial and tangible and immaterial matters. And the concepts, urban planning concepts are its immaterial emanations, but also to some extent may reflect its image adequately on the screen of the Platonic cave, which I mentioned. That system can be constructed and also perceived in multiple ways. So in 1159, John of Salisbury compared the city to a human body. So the hands and feet of the city were, according to Salisbury, the houses. 400 years after John of Salisbury, the city of Zamość in Poland was built, which was founded with the assumption that the castle was the head, and the market square, the Zamojskie Academy, and the Roman Catholic Cathedral were stomach, heart, and soul. So we have these aspects: integrity with the nature, animate, and inanimate, and then we have similarity to the structure of living organisms. The latter stream identifies likening by superficial interpretation. It is mentioned by Virtuvius Villard de Ronecourt and Giorgio Vasari. And then we have the second narrow interpretation by Hugo Hering, Alva Alto, and Cas Osterhuis. Of the classical categories classified as indisputable truth, I believe that strength or durability is the key thing, because it indicates when there is life and when the city dies. So a city can be also strong or permanent in a symbolic or metamorphic way. The key concept is the name, the connotation of a name, and the concept. So we have Petra and Palmyra, two dead cities of the Middle East. Different symbols of passing carry different interpretation of dying. These are two different systems. Petra, organically and integrally connected with animate and inanimate nature, it's a certain cemetery, and Palmyra is succumbed to and based on the territorial concept, suddenly annihilated. Petra was built on the route from India to Egypt and from Arabia to Syria. And in the 6th century BC, the Nabateans recaptured it from the occupying Edomites and defended its independence on several occasions against the Ptolemies and Pompey and Octavian Augustus. And Petra was not only related to military operations. So, for example, one of the Pompey's quaestors received a huge bribe. It lasted metaphorically until 363, when it was finally destroyed by an earthquake, and it's a dead place on the map. Palmyra is an example of metaphorical existence ending in a non-metaphorical sudden death. So it was already mentioned in the Old Testament and on the Silk Route, with its first traces appearing in the Neolithic, first inhibited by the Arameans, Arabs, and Romans, and underwent a permanent expansion as a result of new content and new functions emanating in the form of new architectural objects. During the Roman times, it found itself on the border between the Roman Empire and the Parthian state. It received some colonies by the Emperor Hadrian, rebellious and the rebel queen Zenobia made it the capital of her empire. Then it was reconquered by Rome and became the seat of a garrison as a bishopry, destroyed by the Arabs in 744, and by an earthquake it continued to operate as a settlement. In the 20th century, it was an archaeological center. In 2015 and 2016, these historical monuments were blown up by the ISIS militants. So we have this link in a model system where, according to Abraham Moles and Elizabeth Romer, human beings and the types of their activities are one element subordinated to the overall structure of the whole accessible world. So Jean Baudrillard wrote 800 years ago a certain epitaph of entropy, which initiated destruction, repeatedly dying today. It is a dead city. Now, a few words of summary. Metamorphical continuation of a city is related to the logics of erosion. So it's about building something in parallel, something which operates continues. So a city is built by common elements of reality. It is not entirely a formal phenomenon, but also a structural phenomenon. It interferes with the structure, which changes the formal structure, which is its emanation. The form of the structure in the face of its widespread replication is secondary. So we have the initial concept, initial view, and potential beauty. As a result, the space of the city in a longer term horizon is not permanent. It's a symbolic sense, and Palmyra would be a great example from its inception to its death. Thank you.